Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 on the original PlayStation were some of the first games I ever played. I've got some serious nostalgia, especially from the second game, playing with friends and family members, skating around, pulling some sick tricks and being introduced to skate culture. Whatto chaps, I'm MagicalMike, and this series, Quids In, is all about taking a look at games that really nail the idea of what I enjoy playing. If you want to see more, check the playlist in the description, stick a slap on subscribe and wall plant that like button. Cheers. I've not played a Tony Hawk game since Underground in the early 2000s, but the series kind of fell into obscurity for a while after Proving Ground, the last game developed by the original Neversoft team. There were a number of titles developed by other studios afterwards, and eventually Neversoft was made defunct in 2014. Luckily for us, Vicarious Visions would take up the mantle again in 2020 to release this masterful, faithful remake. They also managed to get hold of the original code and some original Neversoft employees to work on it, which is probably a good reason why the game turned out so well. Sadly, Vicarious Visions would be absorbed in with Activision and merged with Blizzard shortly after the release of this game, pretty much cancelling plans to remake the third and fourth games in the series, which is a huge bummer for us because if this faithful remake was anything to go by, then 3 and 4 would have been just as awesome. Boo Activision. That's enough of a history lesson for now though. I just wanted to make a nod to Neversoft and VV for putting in a huge effort to what could have been any old stereotypical licensed game, but ended up being a surprisingly, seriously lovingly crafted series. The nostalgia hits immediately when you boot the game, with the old VHS-styled intro from the second game kicking right into gear with Rage Against the Machine's Guerrilla Radio playing over it, but after a few seconds goes widescreen as you realise that there's new footage here from Tony's 900 at age 48, which is on the Ride YouTube channel by the way if you want to watch that, and seamlessly blends the old intro with more recent clips of our classic pro skaters, still pulling off impressive stuff in the modern day. I gotta say the soundtrack for the game is just as incredible as it was back then. I credit it for introducing me to all kinds of awesome music. Rage Against the Machine, everyone knows of Goldfinger's Superman, Bad Religion and Anthrax, just to name a few. Unfortunately I can't play any of them here on YouTube, but having the background music adds so much to this game. Check out that soundtrack. Anyway, shout outs to legends like Rodney Mullen or Kareem Campbell and Chad Musker for coming back for this game and for being massive inspirations to, at this point, a few generations of skaters. And to some new faces like Letitia Buffoni, Riley Hawk and Lizzie Armanto, if I've got those names right. It's just cool to introduce new professionals to fans of the series. I know I'm not a proper skater, but the original games did manage to get me into real skating as a kid, and I won't lie, I've thought of getting a board again after replaying these, but there's just no way that's a good idea right now. So all these guys are playable characters, they have a bunch of special tricks they're known for, and they've been put into the game at their current ages as opposed to recreating their old likenesses. You can also create a custom skater, and while the options for doing so aren't super detailed, I was happy enough with the results that I got. There's limited options for faces and hairstyles and that kind of thing. You can't mess with any sliders, for example, to alter the pre-mades, and all other clothes and accessories are locked behind in-game levels and cash. But you do get a massive amount of options for decks, and I do love a lot of the styles. It's been hard to pick just one of them to stick to. All the pros have a bunch of unlocks too. More shout-outs to Steve Caballero for having the coolest dragon decks in the game. There's also a very video gamey few that are actually animated, which are really fantastic. The last stuff you can customise are special tricks, picking which you want and what button combos they're assigned to. And finally you got stats, which you can reorganise however you like and increase as you play. The game is pretty simple to start, but has many layers of complexity underneath the surface. At first you'll be happy to just nail tricks worth a few thousand points, but the skill ceiling for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, or THPS, from now on is sky high, letting the best of the best players express themselves with combos going into the millions, the tens, or even the hundreds of millions, or even higher. For what it's worth, the best combo I've landed was just about 3 million, and whoa, that was really hard. I haven't been able to do that more than once or twice, and I've had to come to terms with the fact that I'm just not as good at it as I thought I might be. I simply don't have the dexterity to pull off the harder stuff like instant whallies, for example. But if you do want tips for tips though, check out andyTHPS on YouTube. He's got a ton of videos that helped me improve a lot, and he even worked on the game, so it's amazing to see the level of enthusiasm he still has for it. Big thumbs up. As for the basics, you can do flip tricks very quickly for score multipliers, slower grab tricks for bigger base scores, grinds on edges and rails to connect combos together, manuals, which are basically wheelies to the uninitiated skaters, to use flat ground to connect stuff, and lip tricks on vert ramps if you accidentally press the button, I guess. I'm not a fan of lip tricks. And then there's wall rides if you grind a vertical wall, and wallies if you jump out of that move, along with wall plants if you jump straight at a wall and eject yourself backwards with some air. Pretty much a bunch of jargon for now, but lots of variety and ways to skate the levels while linking tricks together. THPS 1 never had manuals and reverts, for example, so a few mechanics have even been added seamlessly to these remakes, and it's made things really smooth. Tricks themselves look amazing too. The attention to detail on their animations are excellent, and you can see the way a skater's feet move specifically to perform each flip trick accurately. If there were a slow-mo and a free cam feature, you could probably learn to do these in real life using the game, but alas, there is no replay feature, I'm afraid. Anyway, a basic combination might look like this. Sticker slap to manual to wall plant. Just kidding. More like a spinning grab trick out of a vert ramp, revert to manual over to a rail, ollie into a flip trick, landing on that into a grind across the rail to the next ramp, dismounting the rail to another flip trick, landing in another manual, and then flipping over the ramp gap and landing that combo. And that sounds like a mouthful, because frankly it was, but overall it's 1 grab, 3 flips, 1 grind, 1 gap, and 2 manuals. It's a lot easier to play than it is to explain. Gaps, by the way, are predefined objects that you have to connect together that give scores, and there's loads of them per level. Quite fun to find them all. The difficulty comes in connecting more and more tricks together along with specials for huge amounts of points while navigating a level and finding good lines to link tricks together at, all while maintaining your manual and grind balance meters to avoid bailing or slamming the ground and losing all your points. The balance meters are just like any other video game balance system. Keep the arrow in the middle of the bar that shows up near your skater and you're good, as it wobbles around and gets harder and harder to keep in check over time. It looks surprisingly easy to play. I know this because I've watched my footage a bunch in making this video, but it's deceptive, and coordinating your hands to keep everything going is a really difficult skill to master, but tons of fun to work on. Fighting game enthusiasts will relate. You start learning all this stuff by doing solo tours. This is the main single player campaign style content in the game. You go from location to location, all from the original games, as you complete a number of goals in each park to unlock the next for each individual skater. That does mean you can get potentially 20 plus playthroughs out of this game. Oh yes. In each level, you'll have 2 minutes to cross off as much as you can, and each finished goal is saved for the next attempt, so you don't have to do everything in one go unless you're playing the speedrun mode, which I did for some of the clips in this video, which resets level progression in case you wanted to replay those goals in the future. So you'll have some scores to beat, a combo to beat, the word skate to collect the letters of, which usually teaches you a skate line to follow, a bunch of thematic level items to collect, like report cards in school or subway passes in New York, particular trick or gap goals to find, like do an airwalk over the hydrophobic gap in Downhill Jam, a secret tape collectible to find that is usually in a hard to reach place, and some stat points to improve your skater's skills. As you do all these goals, you'll explore the levels, improve your own skills as well as your skaters, and find a bunch of cool spots to session later on. There's also competition parks that test your core skate skills. Pull off a bunch of tricks, combo them together, keep your variety high, and do not bail, dude, and you'll catch a hot score from the judges. These maps are focused on making sure that you have a certain skill level to move on to the next maps, but they're pretty easy overall. In fact, the whole game is relatively easy in my opinion if all you want to do is beat those solo tours. And beating a solo tour for a pro skater unlocks a skate reel of them tearing up some real life spots. You get to see some classic Hawk tricks mixed in with some modern stunts on his tape, for example. Plenty of clips that made them famous over time, and even learn a little bit about their personality from how and where they skate. I like these a lot, they're really fun rewards to earn. But the true difficulty of the game comes in beating challenges, a system added in with the remake that adds a massive amount of content and replayability to the game. These are goals with very specific rules in mind, like getting a big score without using a certain type of trick, or landing all of the gaps in a level, hitting all of a pro skater's special moves in one combo, connecting a number of objects together in a level, hitting a massive score or doing well in multiplayer. There's 820 of these things, and I've barely managed just over 300 of them as of making this video, and let me tell you, some of them are insanely tough. I think I hit my limit with the hard gap combos and the secret scores. I simply can't even get close to the requirements that these are asking for, because while the forbidden connectors were fun puzzles to solve with small score thresholds, the get theirs were extremely hard for me. Railing Kill in School 2 must have taken me about 3 hours alone to nail. Getting all the roll call rails together is like connecting the entire map in one combo. It is super tough stuff, but lots of fun to challenge myself with. Definitely something to keep myself busy with between pro skater tours though. There is also multiplayer, which I've not touched personally, but it is yet another good feature to have the ability to play online in some classic skate modes, such as horse or graffiti. Also included is split screen, which isn't all that common these days, so that's great to see. More nostalgia, and I have played some of that, though only for achievements. Speaking of which, achievements are all pretty reasonable, apart from the hard get theirs being, well, very hard, and the reach level 100 one being an entirely unreasonable grind, if you can forgive the pun. The last feature to mention would be Create a Park, a fully customizable player-created park system to mess around with and make as well as share online. Your own idea of your own skate park. You can do a ton of stuff with this system, planting objects and altering them in all kinds of ways, adding vertices to pipes or ramps, changing the scale of fun boxes, ramps, or adding kinks and links to rails. It's a hugely complex endeavour, and something I haven't really bothered playing around with yet because it's quite intimidating, but it's easy to see how much depth and potential is available here, so another big thumbs up for me. While playing the game, you'll notice that all the best parks are designed in a kind of video gamey way actually. Themed parks are really great, and they add variety to the tours and the base game. School looks and feels like a school, for example. But realistically, the random ramps and fun boxes scattered around the level are totally out of place until you start skating them. Tony Hawkitecture, I've heard it called, where weird design decisions for totally normal things are made just to make skating them more fun or to flow better. Does it make sense that you can grind power lines in Philly? Nah, but it's fun though. Why are there random quarter pipes all over the place in a mall? Vert life, that's why. And a ton of work went into making these levels skatable with intentions that direct your attention and point you towards lines and cool areas to session. Mall is a great example. Being able to combo the entire level is a fun thing if you can manage it, and has eaten away many of my playtime hours alone. It's probably my favourite level overall, along with Hangar and both of the schools. Downhill Jam is also fun to bomb down and try to combo as well. Meanwhile, Downtown stresses me out with the rooftop gap goal and how precise the rail landing has to be. Overall, I love this remake. It's managed to recapture the pure nostalgia from the old THPS games and give me so much more to play with as well. It goes without saying that I hugely recommend it. It's a no-brainer if you're a skater, and an easy pick-up if you just like the idea of flowing around and pulling off crazy tricks. I'm MagicalMike, and I'm Quids in with this game. Cheers.